Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of Spooky Town Tales. 9 episodes in, still going strong. It's me, your host Morgan, and joining me as per the norm in the spooky seats this evening is Sir Jimmy.
Good evening, everyone.
Thanks again for joining me.
Oh,
I'm pretty impressed we're up to episode 9. We're nearly up to 10.
I know, double digits soon.
We've stuck to it.
Done good.
I've been, regardless of whatever has been thrown at me, which, my God, have I had some challenging weeks. But it's you guys that have kept me ploughing through with your awesome feedback and also just the incredible messages and stories I'm getting. Please keep sending them through. And I've had a few people just send little tidbits and cool things they found through. I love that. So please send it on in. Like there was one recently sent a photo sent by Will, who sent in some great stories from his sister. Mm-hmm. And it was just so cool. It was a photo of her laundry door, and there was a massive paw print at head height on the outside.
Yeah. She
doesn't own a dog.
Oh.
There was no sign of any dog in the yard. She'd not seen any dog in the yard. And she's a cleaner by trade. So she's meticulous with her cleanliness, so the glass was spotless everywhere else. And there's just one, huge paw print.
Wow.
So she sent that to him. He sent it to me and just going, can you explain this? What the hell is this? So that's baffled them. So just little things like that. Send them to me. I'd love to see it.
They are great.
Yes, and as a result of a story I received on the weekend, I've completely reshuffled all the episodes because I got so excited.
You did disappear into a rabbit hole on that one. That
I
was good.
did. I was up night and early mornings just throwing myself into research because I had to know what the hell. So tonight we are talking about deep sea creatures and mysteries and something I'm going to refer to as space jellies.
Ooh, sounds delicious.
Sounds delicious. As well as some really creepy little tidbits as well. So we've got a good balance. But the main theme of this evening is sea monsters.
Nice.
Yes. So buckle up, get comfortable, prepare to be
spooked. Probably halfway through a drink on that one.
I was having a sip of wine. So I felt it apt this evening to venture back to my ancestral roots as I delved there last week.
Again.
And because I got some photos from a good mate of mine, Joel, from when he had actually been to the cemetery, which is the site of the Gorbals vampire.
Oh, no way.
So he had photographs. He had of the cemetery of where this story, this legend took place. And I was like, oh, wow.
That is so cool.
So he was there on holiday, I think it was last year, maybe the year before.
That's right, I remember seeing
Yeah, he went to Glasgow. And so he got to actually go there. And there's even a big mural painted.
Oh, really?
Of the Gorbals vampire.
So cool.
And he was completely oblivious to the old folklore of Jenny with the iron teeth. So he was quite stoked with that episode. He was like, oh, I didn't even know, but I've been there. So there you go. Cool. I love getting that kind of feedback where you're like, oh, you've been there, you've heard about this.
Yeah.
So thank you, Joel.
Awesome.
Really cool. So I figured I'll start this week's episode with a story from Scotland. We have a really exciting local one coming up, but I'm just going to tantalise you.
Ooh.
Drag it out. So I wanted to just tell you guys about the most haunted road in Scotland because when I was reading about this, it was just like what the actual fuck? Because it's not your standard, ghostly apparitions wandering across the road or jumping out in front of cars. I mean, that does happen as well on this stretch of road.
Yeah.
But that's one of many strange things that happen on this road. So if you are ever in Scotland and you decide to go for a little road trip down the A75 Kinmount Straight in Dumfries, Galloway, to be exact. Whoa. This is how specific it is.
Quite accurate.
You may very well come across one of many strange things, including strange animals,
right,
eyeless man with crutches running in front of the car.
That's pretty scary. On
his crutches. Screaming hags. Okay, now this is just the start. So I'm going to keep going as I go. There is far more weirdness than this. So Derek and Norman Ferguson in 1962 were driving along the A75 when a large hen flew towards the windscreen, startling them. They then witnessed great cats and various other unrecognisable creatures coming out on the edges and across the road. So they're trying to drive, going, what the hell is that thing?
What the hell? Including
large cats. Now, this is in Scotland. Yep. There aren't any tigers.
No.
I mean, I think there was bears and wolves many moons ago, but there were no large cats except the Scottish wild cats.
Right.
But these, apparently, the majority of the creatures were unrecognisable. On top of that, these poor brothers... So they've seen a hen.
Yeah, they got attacked by a chicken.
A chicken's flown at the screen.
We all know that's pretty scary.
Then they've seen all these weird animals. And then they saw a phantom furniture van. Was it yeah. So a furniture van. Like, 1 minute it was there, and then it just right in front of them. Like, what? So you can imagine how, like, and it's Scotland. You can imagine imagine that conversation. They pull up to the closest pub. Bloody hell! You'll not believe what I've bloody seen. You can imagine it.
Sounds more like a Monty Python.
It's a Monty Python skit, like the vampire rabbit. It's a vampire chicken. So that's one of the weird stories. Now there's a bloke called Bob Sturgeon. He lives right near the A75, right near the section of road where all the main, I'm talking hundreds of reports.
And he's been stoked that everyone's fallen for every
single trick that he's set up. He's got all his farm animals, shaved bits off them, stitched bits on. But anyway, he had a roadside snack van. That was his business.
Okay.
On that stretch of the highway for a little while. Let me see if I can say this right. Caruthanstown? My handwriting's appalling. So that's where he used to, every week he'd open up his little snack van on the roadside, and people could stop and get snacks. He said it was rare that a week would go by when someone wouldn't stop there and tell him about something freaking weird that happened on Kinmount Straight, which is right near where he was.
Yeah.
He said there was barely a week.
Whoa.
So, and he said, and every time, a lot of them lined up. Some of them were just brand new weird things. He'd be like, really? Jesus.
Put it on the list.
He even, he was regularly a refuge to a traumatised lorry driver, as he put it. And what was really weird was long-distance truckies, they didn't know each other. So there was nowhere there to stop where you could share stories. And
so he just copped them all.
He would cop them all. So he said that the amount of times he would have a lorry driver pull up, just completely traumatised, and just blah, blah, about this weird thing that he's seen, and then he'd be like, "It's all right, mate.
Here, have some
snacks.
Get on your way.
Have some minstrels." No, but it was like he just said, because none of them knew each other.
Of course.
That validated it for him because there were so many, and a lot of them the stories would match up from people who had never met.
How crazy.
And you could understand it if there was if they were all working for a local logging, if there was, you know what I mean? If they all worked for the same company, but this was long distance truckies.
Yeah.
Would pull in there completely unaware there was any issues with the road, and then report the same freaking weird things. And majority of the time it was weird mutated animals.
That's so crazy. crazy.
But this one was this is the most common sighting, was a group of dejected, bedraggled people pulling hand carts and bundles like medieval camp followers.
Whoa.
Like a massive gang of these figures would come out across the road and people would like to slam the brakes on and watch and they'd walk past the car. Really freaking weird.
Creepy.
So creepy. One of the guys that had come to him and just, told him about this one.
Yeah.
He gave up on lorry driving. He was so traumatized. He was like, that's it. I've had it with it.
Going back to the city where it's safe.
He's going back to the city. No more lorry driving for him. Maybe this bloke selling snacks might have been slipping stuff into.
Just keeping them coming back.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Stranger things have
Well, like you
happened.
said, maybe he'd rigged the road. He didn't seem put off setting up shop on the side of the haunted road. Anyway,
Serving three-legged chickens.
clearly he's not got a problem with three-legged chickens. So there was other reports. Yeah, so there was animals, there was horsemen, there were carriages. Another, as we've discussed in a few episodes ago, another major report that would happen all the time was people thinking they'd hit someone.
Yeah.
So someone jumping or running out in front of the car.
Yeah.
Them thinking they've run them over and then not being able to find a body.
Yep.
That happened all the time. But it was mainly phantom figures of men and women that would emerge from the dark, like from the edges of the road, and then seemingly vanish or walk out in front of your car.
Crazy.
So how's that?
That's pretty awesome.
I'll say the name of the road again in case you're morbidly curious like myself.
When
So
you
it's
want to go down there.
Yeah.
Get yourself some chicken wings or some cat wings or
whatever else it is. Find the snack shack, man. Seems to be selling the goods. So the A75, Kinmount Strait, Dumfries, Galloway. So that is the most haunted road in Scotland, apparently.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty freaky. Now, we thought we'd as we are open-minded, we thought we would discuss a phenomena that Jimmy heard about, as well as I'd already heard about it because of, I'm always reading this stuff. The Belmez faces. You may have heard of this phenomena. So, if you have not, a private house in Spain in 1971 started to experience strange faces appearing in the concrete floor of the house, in the kitchen, I believe, near the hearth. Mm-hmm. So when the first face appeared, I think it was Maria was the wife. She got quite upset by it and asked the husband and son to destroy it, which they did with pickaxes. Then they re-poured the concrete and it reappeared again, but different faces. And apparently faces would be appearing and reappearing and disappearing and then new ones coming up. Now, the legend goes that when they dug up the concrete, they found skeletons. And what was it that you'd heard?
I heard there was 10 skeletons and 3 of them didn't have heads.
Yeah, so this is this is a perfect example of why a lot of paranormal things sort of get discredited, because what will happen is a strange thing will occur and then it gets blown out of proportion and it becomes something completely unrealistic. Like, there were never any skeletons found. No. I can confirm. This actual incident was proved to be a scam because they did remove the second concrete slab that was poured that had faces on. They actually took it away for testing. In the meantime, the mayor refused to let anyone destroy the concrete because he realised it was a massive tourist puller for the town. Yeah. So then it became a tourist hotspot and the town made a lot of money off of it.
Money works.
Hence, it was proven later there was traces of chromium, lead, and I forget what the other chemical was. But they discovered that there was definitely traces of stuff used in paint. Yeah. Most paints and things like that. Here we go. Zinc, lead, and chromium were all present on the patches that were the apparent faces. So, but then that obviously blew out to this theory that there were bodies underneath and it was the spirits of the bodies.
And it just kept going and going.
Going. It's snowballed, but it was proven to be a hoax. when it was all in its prime, many parapsychology experts referred to this. What they believed was happening was something that's occurred and it's been documented through time. Just for some interesting factoids here for you, as I like to give them to you folks. Have you ever heard of photographic phenomena?
A photographic?
Photographic phenomena?
No.
No? Photographic phenomena is actually when an image is subconsciously produced by a deceased person or a living person with psychic ability. So they subconsciously produce an image onto either an object or like a photograph.
Yeah.
There is a illusionist who, I've forgotten his name, but I think I had it written down. I've done so much research on many different things this week. I'll make a post this week about this very famous Uri Geller. There it is, Uri Geller. Anyway, he actually used to perform this trick on stage. So he would hold photographic paper on his forehead.
Yeah.
And he would project an image, and when he pulled it away, an image would appear.
Really?
Yeah.
Human photocopier.
Pretty much a human photocopier. And he wasn't the first. This has actually been present in a lot of cultures. Again, when we talk about how there's different cultures experiencing certain phenomena
in different ways,
and they're completely unrelated and unaware of it being present in other cultures.
Yeah.
It has been around in Japan for a very long time.
Really?
Yes. So they call it nengraphy, from the Japanese nensha, which is to burn an image from one's mind to a surface, such as a photographic film.
Cool.
So there are several people throughout history in Japan who have apparently had this ability.
How cool.
But there is this illusionist in recent time who has been saying he has this ability.
How cool.
So there you go. So that's what the parapsychologists thought was happening with the Belmez faces. And that was in De la Moreda, Juan Andalusa.
Wow, good job.
Spain. I've said that wrong probably, and it was the Parira family. So I think it might have started as a coincidence, and then they've had the mayor there going, we could make money off this. You need to keep pretending that this is happening. So there you go. So there's an example of how you can pull off a paranormal hoax, and because it's such a unknown area, you can capitalise on it. We don't believe in that here at Spooky Town Tales. We believe in disproving the bullshit and allowing those that have had legitimate experiences a bit of comfort in the fact that there's someone out there that believes you.
Yeah.
And we're not going to judge you for it.
That's right.
Which leads me to the reason why I've shifted the subject this week to a listener email that I received, a message I received. So I received a story this weekend that blew my mind, because I've never, ever, and I have heard of every single kind of spooky thing. I've never actually heard of anyone experiencing this before. So I wanted to help her out, because I just thought, for one, great story, thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to help her out and see if I could offer her some comfort that someone else has had this happen, because it really rattled her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read you her story, and then I'm going to read you the incredible stuff that I found out.
Also
that I
dug up at the same time.
At the same time, that I hope will give this listener comfort, because I was completely blown away when I found out what I did. So she wishes to remain anonymous, so I won't mention her name. But here goes. Hubby and I have a bush property in Southampton near Balingup. It is in a valley along the Blackwood River, surrounded by pine forests and steep hills. We only get down there a couple of times a month to camp in the forest, but hopefully one day we'll have our forever home there. So one misty night, along the Blackwood, I was walking with our dogs up to our house pad as the views were amazing, especially for stargazing. It's up a hill, which is a steep, rocky old gravel road with a huge drop over the valley below. On the left side, and a huge hill to the right side of native bushland. I got about 100 metres up where I could see the whole valley along the river, stopped for a breather, and as I looked across in the distance, I could see 2 blue lights in the sky like orbs, with the centre a bright pale blue, almost white, about 800 metres away above the neighbouring hill of the pine forest. I've seen a heap of weird and wonderful lights and orbs down there, so I stopped to watch them as they went up and down the distant hill for about a minute. It looked like they were searching for something. I thought maybe the pig shooters have drones now and they were following the pigs. So I turned off my torch, hoping they wouldn't see me in the distance, but one of the blue lights flew straight across to me in a matter of seconds. Back in your days?
Yeah.
It was high above me at first as it came over and it started coming downwards in an organic kind of way. I could see the shape was like a jellyfish, a big, bright blue, radiating one, and moving like one too, like the misty sky was water. It had long flowing things like tentacles following below it. The movement of it was crazy. It looked like it was swimming. I could not believe my eyes, and I was shitting myself, but amazed at the same time. I would have been doing the exact same thing. I would have been going, holy shit, it's beautiful, but what the hell is going on? So I stumbled down the hill a couple of metres to a tree to hide under. The dogs took off full pelt down the hill and left me there.
Oh,
Thanks, dogs.
dude.
That made me scared that they were scared, but I couldn't run as the road was all washed out and so rocky. I stumbled from tree to tree, hiding as I descended. It followed me all the way down as I slipped and slid on the gravel. And once I was on the flat ground, I just bolted into the little shortcut path we made through the thick bush. I never looked back. I just kept running till I got to camp with my heart in my throat and so scared I was shaking uncontrollably.
Whoa.
I couldn't talk at first, and my hubby said, what the hell happened? With our 2 big dogs sitting on him. He was spewing that he hadn't come for a walk that night, and I've only just started going on night walks on my own again, but never when it's misty. Fair call.
Yeah.
It rattled me so much that it's given me the shakes writing about it. There's a little part of me that wants to see it again, but with other people there too. She'd be interested to know if I've ever heard of any other flying jellyfish stories. Now, I hadn't until me being me had to know more.
Of course.
So I started some research for you, and there have been many people have reported, actually there's been numerous reports worldwide of seeing jellyfish soaring through the skies.
Space jellies.
Space jellies. Well, we'll get onto that in a little bit.
Sorry.
But they're often reported as looking like a jellyfish and bobbing around like they would in the sea. So this is something that others have seen. You are not alone. You are not crazy. Many people have seen this. Apparently they're able to change colour, size and density, and they can almost go completely transparent as well.
So cool.
Yeah. And there's cases of them being bioluminescent as well. So they seem to be able to generate their own light, much like a deep sea jellyfish would. They seem to be moving about on their own through some unknown form of propulsion or merely on the whim of air currents. So they're organic. There's no sound. They seem to just blob around in the air.
So cool.
So other people have seen this. So it goes back as far as the 50s. And it was actually, there was a policeman in England claimed that he had a run-in with a low-flying sky jellyfish as he was riding his bicycle on patrol. He claimed it drifted right down in front of him and he actually bumped against it, describing the sensation as to brushing up against a soft blanket, that it had an unpleasant smell of mildew. Then in 1958, another policeman reported, named Faustin Gallegos, found a purple translucent blob about the size of a soccer ball outside of his house. And he said when he approached it, it seemed to be some sort of dying creature. When he picked it up, it just sort of evaporated, fell apart in his hands.
That's so crazy.
So another person who was a reliable source who experienced this. Now, here is where it gets weird. So, yes, other people have seen it.
Yep.
But, listener, darling listener, just so you know, not only are you not alone in seeing these sky jellyfish, there were two other, the most recent reports of these things took place in Perth, Western Australia. The two most recent ones. And they back up each other, these stories, and they back up your story. I'll read them to you now. So, Perth, Australia, a gentleman who goes by BD, he'd witnessed in 2012, he was out the front of his house having a cigarette when his attention was drawn to a curious sight of light patterns of stars being disrupted by something passing over them. At first he thought it might be a plane, but it soon became apparent that it was not an aircraft. Alright, so he's looking at this thing, having a smoke, going, oh, that's weird.
Those stars are sort of...
What's happening to those stars? As it got closer, the way it moved resembled a jellyfish. It would, like, as if it would swim horizontally, so it bobbed up and down and it was going across horizontally. It was hard to describe, but it looked like it was expanding at the front like a balloon, then using that air to propel itself along. It was roughly 100 metres above me, and I watched it for 10 minutes. After that, it was out of sight. This was during a clear night in Australia. Now, he lives near Jandakot Airport. Okay. He knows what planes look like. Yeah. He sees them all the time. That's why he was like,
That's not normal.
It's a jellyfish. He yelled out to his mother-in-law, or who was staying there at the time.
Yep.
And she also saw it.
Well, 10 minutes is a fairly long time to be watching. So
yeah.
That's really cool.
So she saw it, got her smartphone out, tried to film it, but because it was so dark, it didn't show up on the smartphone. Much like when you try and take a picture of the moon, just didn't do it.
You get a dot.
Yeah. The feeling they were both left with that it was some kind of creature because it moved so gracefully and gradually in large deliberate movements like a large bird would do with a flap of its wings. It appeared to be translucent in parts but remained at the same altitude and speed, just completely silent.
So cool.
So strange. Now, to make this even weirder, another person saw it as well, unrelated. Two people on their balcony listening to jazz, to be specific. So there were two of them. They were in the Perth CBD having a glass of wine, listening to loud jazz music.
Yeah.
On their balcony, and about 10 metres, they were about 10 metres off the ground. They've written they were absolutely thrilled to see that someone else had seen this because they had the same kind of thing as this listener going, am I losing my fucking mind? Yeah. Like, what the hell is going on? So the creature that they saw was behaving exactly like the other guys described. Yeah. So it's basically a jellyfish, but their one didn't have long tentacles that they could see.
So just the blob bit on top.
But maybe it's because they didn't get as close as this other person did to see it. So it was about the one they saw was about the size of a balloon. It was changing according to the different coloured lighting attached to the balcony. It was flying upwards so effortlessly. So it was just, it was pretty much a jellyfish.
Yeah.
She'd been searching for years for someone else that had seen something. So she's quite comforted by the fact that not only had someone else seen it, but it was literally within like a stone's throw of her house.
Yeah,
had seen it as well. It was about 9 or 10 when she saw it in the evening.
Yeah.
It wasn't. She said the creature wasn't too shy either, meaning it didn't fly away in a hurry. Yeah, so she said it was completely unfazed, just bobbing around.
Totally weird.
And it carries on. I mean, the World Wide Web's a wonderful thing.
Yep.
Because there's a bloke called Pi Guevara who claimed his uncle Oscar Guevara was a scientist, and he actually took part in a scientific survey of these sorts of creatures in the 50s.
Right.
So he claims that he actually studied in a remote area of San Francisco that there was regular sightings of these things, so enough to warrant there being
some research.
A research approved.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And the research subject was called space jellies. Sadly, though, I think we can't really take Pai Guevara's word for it, as the evidence he has to say that his uncle Oscar did take part in this study, the letter that he's provided from said uncle, I find it very hard to believe. It's completely out there. It sounds like something out of a 50s sci-fi novel, considering his uncle even wore a gorilla suit when harvesting these jellyfish to research them. So as cool as it is to think that there was like a scientific body that were researching these, and sadly I don't think this particular person, their account is real. It's not real at all. It's completely fake. But as for the other ones, I don't know what the explanation is. I can't give a straight answer as to what they may have seen. Anyone out there got an explanation? The letter did, however, mention something that kind of, I don't know, in my scientific brain can kind of rationalise a little bit that there could be some sort of creature living in the upper atmosphere. So the theory was they would congregate in the upper atmosphere along coastlines and then would soar into the upper atmosphere out of sight. So during my rabbit hole research of jellyfish and sky-related jellyfish and all this sort of thing, I did discover that NASA actually did some jellyfish experiments.
Really?
Yes. So in the early 1990s, they were launching jellyfish into space, and they were doing it for science.
That's a pretty good reason.
Yeah. So basically they wanted to experiment on, or wanted to find out what the effects of microgravity-induced weightlessness on the Aurelia, ephedra differentiation, and statolith synthesis. So they wanted to basically test if jellyfish bred in space judge gravity.
Yeah, right. So like their sensors for inertia, forward and backward.
Yes. So because... yeah, basically, we humans are exactly the same. We have hairs in our ears and calcium.
Some more than others.
Some more than others. So, and the reason we developed these is because of gravity.
Yeah.
So, what they did was they launched a payload of 2,478 jellyfish polyps
that's a lot
into space within flasks and bags. They were filled with artificial seawater. The astronauts injected chemicals into those bags that would induce the polyps to swim freely and ultimately reproduce.
Wow.
So over the course of the missions, the creatures proliferated. By the mission's close, there was about 60,000 jellies orbiting Earth.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So, pretty cool. So it was to test the effects of microgravity on the jellyfish as they developed from a polyp to a medusa. And in turn, they would test how a jellyfish would respond when they were back on Earth, having had this happen, having formed. What are you laughing at?
So, just a real mature joke about
Medusa. Polyps. Polyps. Oh, God. Toilet humour. He's keeping it real. Jimmy's keeping it real, as per usual. Yeah, so anyway, Jimmy.
Married to a 7-year-old.
Yeah, oh, God. So they wanted to see how the jellyfish would go orienting themselves back on Earth if they had formed in microgravity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how did they go? Did they bump into walls constantly?
They did have issues.
Or did they fly?
No, they did. They had terrible issues. Or did they fly into space?
Yes.
In Bailey Up and Perth?
Some would say it's possible.
Well, I'll just tell you the science behind why this will affect jellyfish. Like why they did this, the science. So when a jellyfish grows, it forms calcium sulfate crystals at the margin of its bell. And then those crystals are surrounded by little cell pockets coated in specialised hairs, and these pockets are equally spaced around the bell. Mm-hmm. So when a jelly's turn, the crystals roll down with the gravity to the bottom of the pocket, moving the cell hairs, in which sends a signal to the neurons. And this is the way jellies are able to sense the up or down.
Yep.
So all they need is gravity for that.
Makes sense.
That to work.
Makes sense why you'd use jellyfish to test this theory.
Yes. So humans, we're the same. We have similar sensitivity to gravity because of the way we have otoliths or calcium crystals in our inner ears that move with the ultrasensitive hair cells, and that tells our brains which way gravity is pulling us as well. Mm-hmm. So if the space-raised jellyfish didn't fully develop their version of gravity sensors, we would be the same if we were born in space. We wouldn't develop.
Less lawsuits doing it with jellyfish
Less
as opposed to people.
Let's not shoot pregnant women to space.
Makes sense.
Or test tube. What do you think happens with your leftover test tube babies?
Ooh, good question.
Space babies. Space jelly mutant babies. It's a hybrid. So that's what's flying through, bailing up as jellyfish shot. So that I thought that was interesting that this has occurred, really cool. And there was that large volume of jellyfish orbiting Earth. What if some of them fell down into the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is made up of water?
A lot of polyps.
Polyps. Basically, the sky's a giant toilet. So anyway, a bit out there, a bit crazy, but I did find, I mean, you believe it or not, it's pretty crazy, but...
To have such a common story.
To have 3 people in WA have experienced it, and I'm pretty sure it would have been roughly within 5 years of each other.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty great that the main recent documented cases are all in the same. We're within 2 hours of each other.
That's really cool.
That's pretty crazy. So I hope that makes you feel better, and I hope that my little jellyfish research maybe gives you a little bit of closure into that. Maybe it is some sort of weird species that lives in the atmosphere, and occasionally when humidity is high, or like you said, it was misty.
Yeah.
Maybe we've not discovered these things yet.
It's crazy.
Maybe they drift down from. Maybe they do live like above the atmosphere.
Knows? Yeah, who knows?
There's so much we don't know. So much we don't know, and that leads me to good segue. Leads me to my next story, which is Julia. Now, Julia isn't the lady that works at the local tuck shop. Julia isn't your friend's mum. Julia is the name given to a sound recorded in March of 1999 by the US National and Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA or NOAA. They recorded a sound, which I'm going to play for you in a moment, that they still have zero explanation for. And I will read you, after I've played the sound, what they also experienced and witnessed through Apollo 33A5's images that were taken of the area where the sound was recorded at the same time. So I'm just going to play it for you now, and I want you to have a little listen and see if it sounds like anything you can explain. What did you think? It's pretty eerie.
It's pretty eerie, very eerie.
Yeah, so these sound experts, these are everyone that's listened to this, countless experts on the subject. Marine biologists, people that study whale noises, people that study seismic activity, underwater activity. They still have no explanation. They're just shooting ideas around like space jellies. Like Mr. Gorilla Suit. It's one of those things that they've got there are so many, there's several sounds have been recorded.
Yeah. That
happen annually. Julia is recorded annually.
Once a year.
They hear it.
Madness.
They hear it. So when this was recorded, the theory that they came up with was that it was a large iceberg that had run aground off Antarctica. Now, this was incredibly loud. So this was recorded a huge distance from where the sound actually was, where they picked this up. So it had to be tremendously loud.
Yeah.
Whatever was creating this sound, this noise.
This noise?
Whatever was creating this noise. So at the time that this was recorded, pictures from NASA's Apollo 33A5 show a large shadow swaying through the southwest section of Cape Cadra at the same time of the recorded sound. Although still classified, the pictures actually provide info that this unknown shadow is 2 times larger than the Empire State Building.
Whoa.
They don't know what that shape was. They can't explain what that was. They can't explain what the sound is. They're just telling everyone it's an iceberg.
Yeah, but the problem with an iceberg is they just don't travel on an annual clock.
No. And the problem with an iceberg is they know what an iceberg sounds like. And it's not an iceberg. Like, they have recorded icebergs. They've got recordings of them running aground. It does not match this recording.
That's crazy.
It actually sped up, has an emulating howling sound.
Yeah.
Much like a incredibly large creature or a whale. They don't know what it is. And there's several of them.
Yeah.
There's even, this is how crazy it is. We only have explored 10% of the world's ocean.
Yeah.
That's 90% of the ocean. They've got no friggin' idea what's down there.
Yep. Haven't even.
They can guess. The studies that they've done, it's like, we'll tag a bunch here, we'll keep an eye on that. Yes, there's equipment to guess how deep the ocean is, but, while they're over this way, there's no one watching over that way.
Exactly.
I'm sure that if there's some creature down there, it's not going to hang out where the guys are with their lights and little submarines.
That's true.
So there is so much they don't know. There's another, the 52 Hertz Whale.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the 52 Hertz Whale?
Not the 52 Hertz Whale.
So this is another recording that's been picked up and tracked up and down the Earth, so it migrates.
Okay.
Now, the reason why it's crazy is that the frequency, 52 Hertz, it's unheard of for a whale.
No whales make that range.
No, it's way too high, the frequency.
Okay.
So a blue whale, I think, is 8 Hertz.
Whoa, okay, so it's ages away from...
Yeah, and a blue whale, we can't really, it's not audible to the human ear, so the recordings you hear of a blue whale have been sped up
to make...
so that we can hear it.
Yeah.
So this whale, no one's ever seen it. They think it possibly could be either an inbred, so a cross between 2 different whales, the fact that it has this mutated vocal call.
That's weird.
But at the same time, and that's why they call it the loneliest whale. It's really sad because they're assuming that this whale is all on his own.
Yeah.
Or her own, and it's calling for a mate. So that's what marine biologists believe. That's what the calling they're hearing is. It's a mating call that's never answered.
Right.
It's very sad.
That is quite sad.
But who knows? They don't know that. That's a theory. That's just a theory because they've never actually even seen this whale.
Pretty cool.
So there's all these kinds of things. There's another one called the bloop, which if you've got time and you're interested, just jump on online and look up deep sea, unexplained deep sea recordings. There's heaps of them that NOAA have recorded. So much so that they have got funding for, like, people have actually, I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, Leonardo DiCaprio has actually topped up a GoFundMe that was started to be able to get funding to study the 52. They're on the hunt for this whale.
That's cool.
So there's a documentary. I think they're still working on it. But he actually was so intrigued by this. He gave the remaining amount so that they would get approval for the
That's pretty cool.
So that's another little tidbit for you here on Spooky Down Tales. Leo, the caps.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is pretty crazy. And on the note of deep sea monsters and that not knowing what is down there, there's been several expeditions now down into the Mariana Trench, which is said to be the deepest place on Earth.
Right.
And where the Meg...
In the 10% that we know.
In the 10% that we know. Where the Meg lives. So... I think it was James, his name was James Cameron, not to be confused with or maybe it is the same guy, the director.
Who knows?
The film director. I don't think it is the same guy. But basically, on the second or third expedition down, which it took 4 hours, I believe, to get down into the Mariana Trench, when they were about halfway down, the blokes in the submarine witnessed a large metallic disc-shaped object. it was seen floating in the water. Now, up until then, they'd only seen your microorganisms that live at that depth, your strange fish, bioluminescent jellyfish, all that sort of thing.
Stuff that need to produce their own light and all that.
Yeah, so this was large, a very large metallic disc. After observing it for a while, they heard a large shrieking sound, and then that automatically cut off all their cameras, went haywire.
Whoa.
This high-frequency sound, obviously, it seemed to knock out all their electronics.
Whoa.
And then shortly after that, the object vanished. Apparently, the guys that were on the submarine won't talk about it.
Holy smokes.
So it was
cool.
It was all documented, but they just refused to talk about it because it was just
a bit too much.
Too much. Don't know what the hell it was.
Yep.
So that was in the Mariana Trench, and along in our little big country, we have our own little monster shark mystery. Because there's been two monster sharks that have been documented, and they too have funding for films. And they're calling one of the, I think, was it? The Smithsonian Institute's even funded one.
Really?
That's called The Search for the Super Predator. So basically, the way this came about, because this is one of those ones where you can't just go, oh, it's hearsay, whatever.
Yeah.
This was proper, legitimate evidence. So the most believable one was the one on the drumline. So off Stradbroke Island, a 3.7 metre white pointer. So she was on a drumline. She'd been caught.
Yep.
She was bitten in half.
Oh.
And from what they can see, the shark that did it would have to clock at about 5 metres long.
That's a big shark.
That's a very big shark. So that got everyone a bit panicked.
Yeah.
So they're now on the hunt for this giant great white who's, yes, apparently 5 metres long. And the scary bit was it wasn't far off Stradbroke Island.
Really?
And, the 3.7 metre great white is pretty scary as it is, let alone something that was able to bite that in half.
Metre and a half almost.
Now, this isn't the first one. There was also another one there was a 9-foot-long great white shark, was apparently, so the story goes, was gobbled up by an even bigger creature. So a tracker that had been placed on the 9-foot great white,
right,
who was incredibly healthy, she was just prime example, which is why they tagged her, because they thought, great, we'll be able to get good information from her.
Yep.
Her tracker washed up on the beach, and they were shocked because they're like, "What? Why is the shark on the beach? Have they grown legs?"
The heck back in the water.
She was healthy. What? She grown legs and decided to be a human? She's done an aerial and sold her voice to the sea witch. So the data showed that there was a rapid temperature rise from 46 degrees to 78 degrees, along with a sudden sharp 1,902 foot plunge.
That's a deep dive.
Yeah. So what they can gather from that is that
it got
eaten.
Something.
It's gone inside another animal's digestive system.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a deep dive.
And the only theory, the main theory that exists is that it was eaten by a colossal cannibal great white shark. And that's why the Smithsonian Institute is now funding this. But another thing I thought is, what if the tracker was eaten by a smaller animal and it had just fallen off?
Yeah, but you've seen them stick them on. They're pretty...
Yeah.
It's a pretty intense process. They jab them.
They jab them, yeah. But I'm sure there's documented cases of them falling off.
But you can't then have it fall off and then a smaller creature dive that deep. That's pretty deep.
Yeah, that I think is what's disproved the theory that a smaller animal's eaten it, because it did dive to such depths so rapidly as well.
Yeah.
And maybe it's to do with this. Maybe regarding marine biology. If there are any marine biologists out there regarding, can you judge what type of animal it would have been by the temperature of the stomach or the digestive system?
Possibly.
Is there a way of telling whether it was a whale or it could have been a killer whale?
Who knows?
I've heard of killer whales killing great whites.
Yeah.
And that was my other theory. What if it's just had a biffo with a killer whale or something, and it's chomped the chunk of flesh where the sensor was,
or whatever it is, where they
and it's swallowed the sensor?
Quite possibly.
because I don't know whether they found the corpse or anything. I think they're of the opinion the whole thing was swallowed in the sense it's all that was found.
Yeah.
My skeptical brain says something's bitten the shark and swallowed the sensor.
Got the right spot.
That's what I reckon.
That makes sense.
I mean, you see the damage on sharks and dolphins and whales. They've got chunks out their dorsal fins all the time. And generally they do put it near the dorsal fin.
They do. That's from what I've seen.
Yeah. So there you go. I might have just totally disproved. Smithsonian Institute, maybe you should think twice before you offer up all this money. How about you offer some funding to me? And I'll make an even cooler, spookier movie for you. Going around disproving all this stuff.
Just like that.
I know. Kapow! I go straight for the ball sack.
Yeah, apparently.
Okay, so we've taken our wetsuits off, we've dried ourselves off, we're going back on land now.
I feel safer already.
I feel safer. I feel more at my depth. Oh. So we're back. We're back on land. We're back in the land of puns. Now, coming up in the next few weeks, I've been doing a lot of research into Indigenous Dreamtime stories that link in with our cryptids that exist here in Australia. And there are so many cool correlating stories.
Yeah.
I've even found a link with all the lights. We've had even more emails about UFO sightings and strange lights in the same areas.
Really?
Yeah, all on similar stretches of road.
Cool.
So there's plenty of those coming up in the next UFO episode, which may be next week, but it may not. I pretty much fly by whatever I'm feeling.
Fly by the seat of your pants.
Seat of my pants. I've got this massive books and books full of people's stories and other stories and research that I do, and then I just how I'm feeling that week.
That's what you get.
Hence, we've rushed this forward because I just thought this was just too crazy. This jellyfish, flying jellyfish. I mean,
It's hard to say no.
have you ever heard of this, guys, before? Is this your? I'm really hoping that that you're space jellyfish virgins and that we're your first. That Spooky Town Tales will be the first to.
I actually hope we're not. I hope someone else can ring in and
say, holy crap.
Yep, that's what I hope.
Ring in? No one rings.
You know what I mean.
You're such an old man. They've got this thing called the Tinternet. The Tinternet.
The interwebs.
The interwebs. The WWWs.
He's an idiot.
Excuse old Pops, my old man husband. Any other spooky stories you've got, or weird experiences, or just crazy theories, or paranormal things you've heard about, send them through. We want to hear about it. Thanks again for all the support and for the feedback. Keep it coming. And, please like and share the show with anyone you think will like it. And, just remember, guys, to stay spooky.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening again. This is Morgan.
And Jimmy.
Saying good night and stay creepy.
Bye.